Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure now to welcome a man who, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. He's no stranger to barriers throughout his life. He's fought. And Senator, I'm so glad to welcome you to the 700 Club. And I want to ask you one question. You running as an African-American Republican in Strom Thurmond's state when he ran as a Dixiecrat against Harry Truman. How in the world did you do it? That's one question I want to start with. How did you do it?
Well, thank you, sir, for your generations of positive, powerful, biblical leadership for our nation and for my family. I was blessed by the grace of God, to be honest with you. There's no doubt that South Carolina has gone through a transformation like the world has never seen. So it's been my blessing to be able to be elected to the United States Senate, serving in a seat basically that Strom Thurmond had years before me. But there's no doubt that God's grace is real. And it's one of the things I talk about in my book, Opportunity Knocks, is how God really has allowed his grace to shed not only on my life, but throughout South Carolina. There's been so much transformation that we can see. It's palpable throughout this state. No doubt you could see it after the church shooting about 5 years ago. The entire state rallied, a racial unification that was birthed because someone tried to create a race war in the heart of Dixie. So much has changed.
What about your mother? Is that the influence that brought you to the Lord? Was it your mother's prayer?
Yes, sir. There's no doubt that I like 2 Timothy that talks about the spiritual heritage of Timothy, his grandmother and his mother. And for me, my mom, Frances, has been the bedrock of my faith. She encouraged me when I was down. She loved me and kept me going. Sometimes she loved me in strange and incredible ways. We call that a switch in the South. Sometimes she had to use that Southern apparatus of encouragement. So she has always been there with me. So.
That switch is a very powerful thing, you know. The rod of reproof will drive folly far from the child. Let me ask you about this. This coronavirus thing apparently is hitting the African American community rather hard. What can we do to help these people?
Well, I'm thankful for the administration's approach. They reached out to me. The White House reached out to me before I had a chance to reach out to them. So that's a good sign that they were paying attention to the statistics. I've had a conversation about aggregating the information around the country. What we're finding is that if you have either asthma or high blood pressure, those two morbidities places you at a greater risk due to the coronavirus. And so the African American community has a disproportionate number of folks negatively impacted by high blood pressure specifically and asthma. So what we're trying to do is have a communication call with African American pastors, lay leaders, business leaders to focus attention on the very dangerous impact that the COVID-19 or the coronavirus is having in the Black community. I had a call with faith leaders last Friday. I think we're making progress, but in South Carolina, sir, 46% of the deaths have been African American, while we only represent about 27% of the population. And in Michigan, it's about 41% of the mortality rate and only 14% of the population. So this is something we need to keep our eyes on it. We should put some communities of color in the same category of some of our elderly as very vulnerable people based on those morbidities that make us more vulnerable.
Let me ask you something. We are going to get over this, and how do we get the economy back moving?
Yes, sir. So we've done a good job of flattening the curves. That's good news. But at the same time, we flattened the economy, which is bad news. I think this economic tsunami will live as long in history as the current healthcare crisis will. The way that we get it started is we have to have testing on demand. When we have the ability to see who's had it, who may be immune to it, I think the economy will start moving forward very quickly. The president has established a group of experts in different different sectors to help us figure out the fastest path forward. I think he's optimistic that the month of May, April showers, May flowers, hopefully our economy will start blooming again, and that will be a very positive sign. It'll be a slow movement, though. I do think we'll have a V-shaped recovery, so I think there's going to be a bounce that happens around August. People will have to get over the psychological scar tissue that has come about because of the coronavirus, but that progress will start in May. It'll get better in June. I think it will be humming by August. So I'm excited about the future.
Well, I love what you're saying. Now let's talk about your book, Opportunity Knocks. You're talking about opportunity zones, apparently, for the disadvantaged, children who are trying to escape poverty. How does an opportunity zone work?
Well, thank you, sir, for mentioning Opportunity Knocks, available everywhere books are sold. The way that the Opportunity Zone works is we give people the ability to defer their capital gains tax up to 7 years if they'll make a long-term investment in one of the Opportunity Zones around the country. Opportunity Zones are where the people who live in those zones have about a 31% average poverty rate. The president was kind enough to work with me on this legislation, and now we have about $67 billion from the private sector, not government money, but from the private sector, coming in to change and transform lives throughout this country. My life was certainly aided by a wonderful mother, but also a strong Chick-fil-A mentor came along and helped me find my path to economic opportunity and, frankly, becoming a Christian back at Presbyterian College, Go Blue Hosts, back in 1983.
Well, now, these opportunity zones, they're a real good deal for people who want to save some taxes. They invest in them, and then they get a tax holiday for 10 years, for 6 to 7 years.
Yes, sir. It's a phenomenal opportunity for folks who have a capital gains tax burden. And after 10 years in your new investment, you owe zero in capital gains tax. That's another strong, advantageous reason to take a second look at areas where today people are a little more skeptical. We have to encourage people to take a second look at those very important areas of our country.
What are some of the areas that have been opened up there? It's a really good investment opportunity. What are the cities?
Well, I tell you, the good news is we have almost 9,000 opportunity zones around the country. I'll give you a couple examples. Houston has some strong opportunity zones. Dallas, South Texas, there is a development happening there in a very impoverished area where they're creating over 2,000 permanent jobs, affordable housing a part of it. In my home state of South Carolina, Charleston, the #1 tourist destination in the country, we're creating a tech corridor, over $60 million being invested into an opportunity zone. In other parts, Greenville, South Carolina, the mayor there worked with developers to create a $100 million project, including affordable housing and affluent housing, so that we can have this sense of community and culture that is so important for human flourishing. So there are examples from Florida to California, obviously over 100 opportunity zones in the great state of South Carolina. And we welcome you to come visit and spend some time on our beaches once we get them back open.
It sounds wonderful. And by the way, you know, I hear about some of these Democrats that are attacking capitalism, and they're talking about how bad what you're saying is let capitalism flourish to help people. I mean, am I saying it right?
Sir, you hit the nail on the head. There's no question that the one thing you can guarantee with socialism is that those folks at the bottom stay at the bottom, because it really becomes a caste system. No one from the bottom moves up. In free markets and economic opportunity areas like America, what you see is every single American has the opportunity to make their own decision on what they buy, what they sell, and how they move forward in commerce. The great thing about America is that no matter where you're from, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, the American dream, it's alive, it is well, and it requires economic freedom, and the anchor to economic freedom is capitalism. It's the independence that's woven into our fabric that allows us to literally flourish beyond at least my wildest imaginations. I cannot imagine having grown up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty, a mother who was a nurse's aide, changing bedpans and moving patients, to become a United States Senator. That story is only possible. You can read about it in Opportunity Knocks, but it's only possible here in America.
Well, Senator, we have begun to understand the secret of how come you got to be a senator. Ladies and gentlemen, the book is called Opportunity Knocks. You ought to get a copy. It's available wherever books are sold. And what a magnificent exposition of free market capitalism from somebody who came from the bottom and doesn't try to tear down the rich, but he wants to build up people to become them. It's great.
Yeah, it reminds me of Ben Carson's stories.
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
Exactly. Well, Senators, thank you so much for being with us. God bless you.
Well, thank you once again for your spiritual leadership in our country. Please continue to do so. May the good Lord bless you with great health.
I'll do it, my friend. God